fact we're just going to run out of the smart people to be able to support the likes of Fonterra and Genesis and all the companies that are going there, because there's just not the talent pool. The technology is moving quicker than we can bring the talent.
So a lot of organisations are starting off recruiting directly. They're getting inundated with hundreds of CVs and they still haven't got through them 2 weeks after they've advertised the job. Today we can't see the value for someone else to have that information, but maybe tomorrow that changes.
What does this mean for the way that humans have a relationship with technology as we go?
So in 5 years' time, we're going to be super advanced from where we are now, but we're not going to be anywhere near as advanced as we will be in 20 years' time.
Ryan the Lion Ashton, a networker and sales and marketing extraordinaire, has made significant contributions in the tech industry. Here's an overview and some key points. Background. Ryan Ashton is the founder of AFQY, A Few Quiet Yarns, a community-focused platform. He transitioned from an award-winning art director to working in hospitality and tech. Tech involvement. Ryan has been surrounded by tech from an early age. His mother completed a computer science degree, and he grew up witnessing her IT career. AFQY. Ryan's platform, AFQY, helps businesses grow through community and relationships. His tech-enabled approach emphasizes the power of connections and meaningful conversations. In summary, Ryan the Lion Ashton combines his marketing expertise with a passion for tech, fostering connections, and driving growth in the industry.
Ryan, welcome. What an introduction. And normally I do the introductions. Yeah. So using a bit of tech, making it happen. Happy Friday.
Thank you.
And what a week. Another week in AI. Things are moving quickly. But today is not about the speed. It's about me and you catching up, because we've not caught up for, I don't know, a couple of years maybe. I saw you a few weeks ago actually by happenstance at a Microsoft event.
We do run into each other at events, now they're AI events, but I would say that the last time we had a good sit down was pre-AI era.
Yeah, pre-AI. And today, I firstly have some empathy for everyone that's listening, because the reason we do this podcast is that there's a lot of clickbait, a lot of hype on LinkedIn, a lot of hype on the internet, and we had to cut through some of that BS today on Friday ahead of the weekend, King's birthday weekend. So this will be out just after the King's birthday, and I want to hit on some, I guess, bring some of your experience and take on the world. The reason that we invited you to the SupaHuman Podcast, it's pretty pointy, to be honest. I was thinking about people who I'm connected to and the New Zealand tech industry is connected to, who have been around and have the deepest relationships across the C-suite. Yeah. And I feel for the C-level executive right now who's carrying this burden of the huge opportunity of AI and the risk that comes with that as well. Mm-hmm. And whilst we're not here to push on those and create more clickbait, there's no better person to get a sense of what's happening on the coalface than yourself. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And I think to your point, if I use a cute comment that Dan Te Walker put on a post the other day.
What a guy, by the way.
Sorry?
What a guy.
Yeah. And it was, so I just posted about the work that they're doing with Te Tumu Paiora, and his comment was, wow, your summary of what we spoke about is better than a ChatGPT or Copilot example. So hopefully I can summarize some of the things that I've been seeing, hearing and discussing across the board, from the C-level to the board, and also down into the operational side of things. But my quick summary would be a lot of the organisations are stepping into it cautiously. The term guardrails is well used, and I think it's probably quite fair, because the risk is they don't want something happening. Now, I have the benefit, ironically, of when I used to work with Google 10 plus years ago. The same things were happening when you put a Google search appliance in as now when you put in, say, a LLM, or whether it be OpenAI, Copilot, or something you've built off Hugging Face yourself. But it's the ability for it to uncover what you give it access to. So I think the risk is, and we used to do searches for the F-bomb, the C-bomb, payroll, PG, and anything said about the CEO were our 5 go-tos back in the day when we put a Google search appliance in. And similarly, that's what they're doing now and talking about now when they put in or connect an LLM and point it to the internal organisation's corpus of data. So, no one wants to be on the front page because suddenly everyone's pay scale comes out and all of those sensitive things that we know are reality get put into detail attached to a name, i.e. how underpaid are women, how underpaid are Māori and Pacifica by comparison to Pākehā male. There's a lot of things that they don't want on the front page of the newspaper, but at the same time, organisations are charging forward and doing a lot with it. So at the recent CIO Leaders Summit, we had Joe Lacando from Fletcher's talking about how they're using machine learning and computer vision to increase safety on the construction site, and have made huge bounds from originally from 30% accuracy with the computer vision picking up a problem right up to, I think it was 93, 96. But in terms of accuracy, that is immense, because is that person waving or are they flailing their arm because they've got trouble? How does the computer vision pick up which and decipher which one it is? So that level of accuracy is really important and interesting. Through to Fonterra and Genesis, who are part of the Microsoft beta program. I think it's beta program, but the early adopter program. And both Stephen Morrison and Josh McKenzie from Fonterra and Genesis respectively have been speaking at various events and giving the rundown. So I think the synopsis that they've shared is that with the black box products, i.e. it's out of the can or out of the box, you don't have to develop it yourself. It's more around the change management than the IT side of it. And that's the programs of training people, helping them adopt it. And for you and I, we've probably read 1,000 cheat sheets off LinkedIn and trialled it ourselves. But you've got to think about people like my father. When he was in the workforce, he was famously known for trying to change the TV with a calculator and getting upset with the technology. So you can imagine those sorts of people now given AI or large language models, if we're being specific, and putting in the wrong prompt, getting the wrong result, and blaspheming this whole AI rubbish. So to summarise your original question, yes, the organisations are stepping into it quickly, but also being very particular about the safety of how they're doing it.
Well, let's touch on the expertise around that. We saw over the past 10, 15 years, you saw a migration of talent from on-prem data center talent moving into like virtualization, and then virtualization moving into cloud native engineers, then software developers becoming the more emergent or needed skill set as the whole world went digital, building on top of that infrastructure to build software applications. And now you're seeing a whole new workforce need to be created that really get how do you control, engineer, and create very human-like behavior with very binary technology. And surely there's going to be a inflection point where we're just going to run out of the smart people to be able to support the likes of Fonterra and Genesis and all the companies that are going there, because there's just not the talent pool. I mean, the technology is moving quicker than we can bring the talent on. What are you seeing?
So with my work with Consult Recruitment, we are seeing that the market in general is a lot softer than it was, say, 2 years ago when things were crazy, and that's a given. So a lot of organisations are starting off recruiting directly, and the two key problems, and we'll touch on one specifically, but both for context is they're getting inundated with hundreds of CVs, and they still haven't got through them 2 weeks after they've advertised the job. But the problem, or more specific problem of interest related to the AI discussion, is they're coming to us for anything data related, data analyst, data engineer, all the way through to data scientist. Those people are hen's teeth at the moment, or the needle in the haystack, and that's because they are the people that are involved in building computer vision, machine learning, looking at creating their own LLMs. So while there are trials going on with the big brand black box co-pilots of the world, there are also organisations that are building their own, and there is quite a discussion around sovereign AI. Again, from the clickbait concerns. Well, actually, the real concerns back at the time were real, but to continue the belief that there's still a problem and things haven't evolved and got better, that would be the clickbait, I guess.
So that's interesting, because you look at the whole notion of sovereign data and then pivot to sovereign intelligence. And they're kind of mutually different, right? Sovereign data is it's right next to me. Sovereign intelligence means what that data means is next to me as well, which is very different computationally.
So the news of Microsoft and Te Tumu Power coming out as an anchor client is big news in that space, because, of course, that organisation holds all of the Māori land trust data, 800 of them. And the big question, first of all, let me say, they talked extensively about how data has to reside in New Zealand at the data centre, and that's cool. It's on the ground. We got it. Okay, and you think that's where it ends. There's also a range of things that have been enabled that wouldn't happen normally. So, for example, you normally cannot get access to a Microsoft data center or any other brand of data center for security purposes, for the safety of every client. However, they have made allowances, they have enabled, choose a better word, need some vocab from ChatGPT to help me, but they have created the ability for the organisation to go and bless the data.
Yep.
So that means getting on premise in some way. I think not right in the heart of it, but within the building. But then what I asked was, that's the residence, but what about sovereignty, where anything Microsoft actually has if you term it sovereignty, the overall rule from the American government? Paraphrasing what I remember, Ruth made the point that governments can access data in various ways. And that they have a framework that they're comfortable with built around what data stays in residence in New Zealand and what data can move around offshore, while Dan added that Māori data sovereignty is a catch-all phrase. However, every iwi hapu individual has a different take on it. So we're quite happy with the fact that it resides here, and we've got the other aspects that give us a framework that we're happy to accept and enable us to use all the tools and magic that come with the Microsoft product suite. So that was really interesting, because up until that happened, there was quite a growing shift to, we need sovereign-based built AI here.
Yep. How does that translate into the heart of government from little old New Zealand, or the institutions that have sovereignty, but from a national security perspective and just keeping ours?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting that I would joke and say, and that's when you can't see today we can't see the value for someone else to have that information, but maybe tomorrow that changes. And if we come back to New Zealand government, if we look at a simple use, i.e. there's a huge amount of video that needs to be retained for 7 years, and this is basically proof or evidence that should be, if it's ever required, we can pull it out. But if you store every frame and you've got 8 hours of night where there's nothing changing, then can you use computer vision and machine learning to remove all the frames that have nothing changing in them, i.e. it's just the hours that nothing happens, to reduce your storage requirements, reduce your storage costs? And when you look at a simple need like that, and we all know that at times cloud-based storage can be a lot more than we thought 5 years ago, and the return to on-prem by a range of companies who are looking at horses for courses, is that one of the situations where it's better to store it on-premise here in New Zealand and have the AI, we call it AI with our inverted apostrophes, doing the work here. So maybe it comes down to a matter of horses for courses, and there will be a need and a range for all of those, right?
What do you see? What are your thoughts? I mean, I've got a few angles on this one, but in terms of just the investment that's going to need to go into this, I'm not looking for numbers necessarily, but if you look at this and say, well, for organisations that are going to go down the Microsoft road, cool, there's a set of terms and contracts around that. Yes, there's sovereignty in terms of location, but how much do we think they're going to go, okay, cool, actually, we need a New Zealand AI. We need something that is wholly wedded to the sovereign nation of the country, where there's no form of external party that's interacting with it. And it's our brick, it's our mortar, it's our servers, it's our data, it's ground up.
So if you're talking about what would it cost to build a system?
No, I think it's where we're seeing the US go. Yeah. As in, they're like, okay, we've got the big conglomerates that are building this tech, but we're now investing and throwing billions of dollars at NVIDIA to give us our own chipsets to build our own AI. Yeah. And China will be doing the same. European countries will be doing the same to create the walls between corporate and government. And do we see that being a situation here?
So I haven't heard or seen talk about that, but you raise a really interesting question. And if we think, one of the things I'd like to touch on is that we do develop chips here in New Zealand. We do develop that technology. But I'd say that we don't develop it enough, and we have a mindset that we send it off to somewhere overseas because we don't do that here. But if we think of Endace, I think Raycon, these are some specific examples here in New Zealand. So we have every opportunity to develop something and potentially, do the John Britton on the motorbike, do the Dave McLaren. In fact, one of the guys that led the NASA Jet Propulsion Unit was a Kiwi, Sir William Pickering. Yep. So there's a lot of Kiwi innovation through technology around the world where we could say, let's give it a go, let's do it. In terms of the geopolitical race wars, yes, between the big boys, say China versus the US and their associated consortiums, I think there is. We already see in the news the amount of state-funded attacks, and we won't get into the detail of that because it's just about AI, but it's the new weapon, it's the new nuclear missile. And I think that's probably almost getting into your clickbait comments, so I'll give myself an uppercut for that. But we know, because we work in the industry, and for people that aren't in the IT industry, the amount of attacks that were happening, we saw it over COVID with, what was it, Transpower, NZX, I think 6 big ones, Waikato, PHP. Yeah, so those are examples of real attacks. So to think that they've stopped would be,
and they're likely to become infinitely more disguisable and powerful through the use of more technology as we go. But like switching out of tech and looking at something that you've got a great reputation for, which is the human connection. I first met you when you were doing a few quiet yarns, pulling hundreds of individuals into a room and having this amazing ability to recall everyone's name. I think the event's got a bit too big. Thanks. Yeah, that's great. The interesting thing that comes up quite a lot on this podcast is, what does this mean for the way that humans have a relationship with technology as we go forward? There's so many things that I feel are being massively changed on their head. How kids get educated, what's the future of university? What does technology mean in the human race as we kind of go forward? And I'm quite keen to get a view of, outside of what we're looking at right now, which is budgets, CIOs, looking at the use of LLMs. Let's take ourselves out of that and go, well, what's our relationship going to be with this essential non-conscious being that can really just get us into a pace of hyper-productivity and hyper-engagement?
Yeah. So I don't have a groundbreaking statement to add here, but I do have some practical ones. So yes, I was running AFQY and actually going to be running the first AFQY in 2 years in June with just over 100 CIOs. So that one is going to be senior technology people only. It's not going to be open to the whole community, but we will be running future ones that are open to the whole community.
So you're back.
We're back
in
baby.
The sea. Yeah. Nice.
When I went through burnout in relation to being a primary carer and running a business and having challenges, and that's what led me into full-time employment. Had to make the ultimate decision to alleviate time to get better. And coming back to practical use of AI or ChatGPT, I stepped into MSP world, managed service provider, and never worked in that side. Always been software and consulting, and now moved into hardware. So while I was getting some training and some, I just went to ChatGPT and said, give me the rundown of MSP, what are all the benefits, what are all the problems, what all this, that, etc. I trained myself. And when you talk about education, teachers, some teachers are going to hate me for this, but I think teachers have been, at worst, needed to be the babysitter. Next worst, needed to be the parent and teach kids some how to behave and manners. And the next step is they've been content curators and guides, whereas it used to be the teachers would teach the content, but now you can access it on the internet. So for you combine those two together, I think kids will be able to teach themselves, and we might actually see, rather than the results we've got at the moment, so you think of the carrot and stick, and we've got truancy up the wazoo, we've got the lowest reading, the lowest arithmetic, etc. If we use those old school methods of the teacher, caning us to get us to do our work, we're probably going to get worse results. Whereas I think if we allow kids to explore their learning desires using those tools, then like I did, they will teach themselves more. And I just wanted a little shout out on the note to Halaevalu Tuipulotu, who runs a weekend class with over 200 kids on average, and they will be primary school to what I call 7th form. I think it's year 13. But they're all the kids that aren't doing well at maths, and the paraphrasing is she turns them from maths dropouts to maths scholars. And I think what the difference is when you have an enjoyable way of learning, you actually learn. When you don't have an enjoyable way of learning, like we've all had that teacher that we thought was ugh, and it can just happen, right? And you don't learn, but you actually can do that subject and love that subject.
Which is interesting because I was never an academic. I was a vocational learner. I was like, cool, like give me something to learn, which won't happen, but I'll happily explore my way through something. And the teachers that I gravitated towards were those ones where it was wholly exploratory and experimental based. Anything that was, cool, here's a workbook, go and work through it. I'm like, okay, nope, it's not going to work. But I feel like we're entering into that zone where we're enabling those exploratory learners to become, or to accelerate the exploratory learners, and whether that actually creates a disadvantage for academics because of the lack of structure of self-learning.
Well, I'm going to pick on them again. I was rather dismayed to learn that in a 3-year comp sci degree with a software development major, there was 45 minutes, one lecture spent on agile methodologies. Now, if you look at the likes of Mission Ready or Dev Academy, they have 6-month courses where it's complete immersement and you're doing it all day long. So vocational, you come out after 6 months having spent 6 months doing it and producing work and writing code rather than, and yes, they do that in a 3-year degree, but we need people who are capable now, 3 years versus 6 months, mainly theory versus mainly practical. Who do you want to talk to? I'd love to see it come down to maybe even 3 months. And then be getting into the workforce. But then we've got to solve the challenge, which I don't know if AI can play a part in this, but the old come back when you've got 5 years experience.
Right.
So on one hand, we've got the employers complaining they don't have enough staff, or they don't have enough talent in the right areas. On the other hand, they don't have the ability to give them a shot and get them going. So,
which itself is a lack of maturity on the hiring side. I think on the basis that if we're looking, let's say you're looking for an AI engineer with 3 years Gen AI experience, the only ones you will find are PhD individuals that have been working in the field of studying this technology. They're the only ones. I think that the ability to look at soft skills and talent and ability to just get your hands dirty and figure it out is an underrated skill. But talking of underrated skills, I never went to university. I'm a wholly vocational learner, but I know a lot of people that did. Some were academic, some just didn't know what else to do, so they went to university.
So where did you become the under-18 UK high jump champion if you weren't
What I need to go to university to be great at jumping over a bar.
Just wanted to slip that in, people, in case you didn't know. Was it under 18?
It was under 21.
Under 21.
Under 21, yeah. It was actually for Loughborough University that I jumped.
Yeah.
But as I was part of their athletic team, I wasn't actually part of the university.
Oh, wow.
So, they brought me in. They brought me into their team, essentially scholared in, because they were like, okay, you guys, you can jump over stuff, so come and play on our side. It's kind of how it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a great digression. But that was my whole point of university, is that when you go to university, you're there to become educated. But that's not the value you necessarily get from university. You get social skills. You get to move out from home for the first time. You get to join the athletics team. You get to join the squash team. You get to go away on ski trips and all the stuff that comes with being, 18, 19, 21 years old and just getting amongst it.
So I reference a university degree as a license to drive. Like you and I, you can drive without a license, but you may get caught out if it's actual driving. Obviously, you're going to get a ticket for not having a license. But if it's in the workspace, then it might be a piece of knowledge that you don't have that does require that book learning. But I think for most of the corporate work, like I did with MSP, like I did with recruitment as well, just chucking the question to ChatGPT at this point in time, which we didn't have. That would have been learning from a teacher, learning from somewhere. But also, at my age, I have the experience to know how to apply what it tells me. If I was 18, I may have the ability to work out how to apply what it tells me, but I may not have the confidence being 18, looking at someone who's my age now, going, is this the right thing? But I think that if we were to change the education curriculum, then we could all be learning to code, and we could be doing the most basic level. What is it? There's a range of these clubs. Code Club. So Code Club, I'm involved with Code Club. Not only do I coach rugby, because that's a passion, but I also am involved as a minder with Code Club, and we go along, we have to learn the lessons. So I actually did it as a way to learn coding, and it's very basic at the beginning, which was perfect for me because I'd grown up with a family who did all the coding. My mum's a retired CIO, my brother architected banking systems. I wasn't even allowed to touch the computer when we had a blue screen. They'd fix it for me, which meant I got left able to talk about it, but not do it. So the going and using Code Club, I had to learn them to be able to help guide the kids when they're doing them. That's been my progression. There's other ways I could have chosen, but that was quite a fun way. And I think that, generative AI, ChatGPT, LLMs is now, and as it is, we can use it to teach ourselves almost anything. It's replacing watching the YouTube videos. So now if you go, so I had to replace the chain on my chainsaw. So I Googled, how do I replace the chain on my chainsaw? It brings up a YouTube video that's 10 minutes long, but brings up the snippet that's the 30 seconds that I need. Oh, awesome. Yep. Well, the other option is I go on to Copilot and say, what do I do to change the chain on my chainsaw? And it'll give me an explanation, but the YouTube video actually shows me how to do it. So, I think the future of education is going to be interesting. And on one side, I'm just thinking in my head, there's going to be the same fear of adoption of a new thing that corporates are having, people are having, individuals are having. Including education, will have it. But as we step towards it, step by step, we'll get to this place where it's enhancing our education, and it's giving people who were historically turned off a subject for some reason other than their ability, will now have the ability to pursue it at their own pace. And it's kind of the concept of Montessori schooling. But we'll still need the humans to be the guardrails to ensure that they're learning about how do we, I don't know, I was going to make the quip that, how do we split the atom but not make a nuclear bomb? How do we do something that's useful, purposeful, and okay, but they don't get interested and start looking into nefarious things, which is the age-old problem of any content on the internet. But
talking of nefarious things, we've talked about a lot about in industries and sectors that are looking to adopt this technology to kind of embrace it and move forward. Let's talk about companies that don't exist right now, the ones that are going to be born tomorrow or the ones that will be born next week that are going to challenge the status quo and create the other side of the risk vector, which is, do I need to change quickly because of this emerging new business cycle? So essentially what happened in the streaming era, over a period of 10 years, you saw Netflix come and abolish a whole rental industry. You saw Uber come and kill the taxi industry. Everyone's heard of that to look at, everyone's sick of hearing that one. But this is going to happen again with an AI native approach.
So I've been following this company called SupaHuman AI closely and watching what they're doing.
They're good guys. They're good guys.
Oh yeah, they're pretty good. So there's a range of companies now. Yours, obviously, SupaHuman AI. There's also Being AI, which is an AI specific. And I think we're going to see a shift. And the very simple, practical one that's happening now is rather than developing an app or a website, developing an API, and the ability for an API to interface with another API. Or let me put it in the simplest terms: my people will talk to your people.
Yep.
Your people can talk to my people, and that's what the APIs are going to do. I think it's more commonly known as a AI agent, but what are different people imagining what that AI agent can do, and especially how is it done, and therefore what do we build, and therefore what people do we need to build them? And I think we're still going to need the creative developers, we're going to need the data scientists, we're going to need the same people that are existing in the hen's teeth at the moment. But rather than them spending that time building a website or coding a piece of software, which they will now be using code writers and generative AI to write code for them quickly. It will be writing AI agents and writing APIs so that I can say, book a specialist appointment with a neuropsychologist for my wife, and I need it to be on this date or this date range, and we need to cover off these points. And the meeting invite gets sorted out and put in place with a little précis of all the things that need to be covered and done. Or I don't know, I want to order some KFC on my drive to Hamilton, so I can just drive through, and my ride will take me through, and I will pick it up without waiting, and it'll be true convenience. That'd be amazing, and head off.
Are you hungry? Is that why?
No, I'm.
You just look.
Maybe it's due to my background in hospo, but I find the fast food convenience the least convenient. There's some irony in that, right? And I think if I looked in my order, I'll be honest, every time I look at my order, there's something missing.
Sounds like a tradition, driving to Hamilton, picking up a KFC. But talking of tradition, at the SupaHuman Podcast, we kind of like to ask a real pointy question at the end. Yeah. Give me a one-word answer about what you see AI to be for humanity in the next 5 years.
Okay, you've got to think hard to limit it to 5 years. If it was unlimited, then future would be the word I'd use. Future. But I would say evolution. Evolution,
good. It's a tough question, because I think 5 years is a very odd timeline. And it's purposefully 5 years because you can achieve a lot, but also not a lot can move at the same time. So,
well, if you think of what we've achieved and changed in the first year, we're roughly first year, maybe a bit more than that. It's not going to be that times 4 more. It's going to be that times
like a couple of
exponential. Yeah. So the hockey stick curve is just going to go up. So in 5 years' time, we're going to be super advanced from where we are now. Yeah. But we're not going to be anywhere near as advanced as we will be in 20 years' time. Yeah.
Super advanced, or some would say superhuman. And on that bombshell, thanks for coming to see us. It's great to spend time with you. Really good to reconnect. And look, I'm really happy that A Few Quiet Yarns is coming back. We'll get right behind that. Really
Thank you very much. So this next one, as I say, is just the CIO community. Powered by Consult Recruitment. So we're going to be hosting it at Consult Recruitment. We've got a beautiful cafe-like facility where we can host about 100 people. Yep. And we'll be doing that, and that's sort of the stepping stone back to it evolving itself. Great. And yes, with the work from home over COVID and the lack of connection, I do want to do something that's open to all, open to everybody, and maybe look at the EMA with Brett O'Reilly again, where we had the big one after the first lockdown, but really enable connection, which is what it's all about, and sharing. But as you know, there's no selling at a big open one. So the first one, we're just keeping it simple, one sector, one part of the community going there. But let me finish on saying thank you for having me on the show. It's an amazing time that we're in, and I refer to it as the AI era. Last time we spoke was pre-AI era.
Cloud era.
The
digital transmission era, I think it was classified as.
Yes, and I'm really excited about what AI can do for us. Yes, we've got to have guardrails in place. It's got to ensure that. And let me just add another point. A lot of the biases from racism, et cetera, that we see is not the problem with AI. It's the problem with the data that the humans created that it's trained on. So yes, we need to fix the AI so it doesn't carry our biases forward, but we need to understand it's not the technology, it's actually a human behaviour that the data's from. Some people don't get
things to fix, but ultimately, do good things will happen. Just control the battle on the way through.
Yes.
Look, thanks for joining us. Thanks everyone for listening. We have the new studio, by the way. For those of the regular viewers, we've got a new studio.
Yeah.
Things are on the up and up. We'll cut it there. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks brother.